Hi, I'm Liv. Join me as I ad-lib my way through stories from the vaults, unsolicited sarcasm, bewitching wisdom, and creative insight on how to become our greatest work of art. Here we will discover our wildest and most unscripted selves. Yes, that self, the one that was never meant to be tamed. Hi, welcome to Adlib with Liv. Here we are in my home studio, coming to you from La Ciudad de Mexico, Mexico City, my new home base since, it's been 6 months now. Just hitting my 6 months, going on 7 months here in the city after relocating from Costa Rica, which was my home base for 4 years. Crazy to think. I was in the literal jungle, waking up to howler monkeys, deep sea swims, torrential, rainy, crazy storms, toucans flying overhead, surf, salt life, to the concrete jungle here in Mexico City. It's been so good to have landed here. For those of you who've been to the city, you know this place is just a gem. It's it's incredible. It's this beautiful blend of, first of all, there's so much nature. It's got the main park, Bosque de Chapultepec, is just an expanse of green jungle. It's absolutely stunning. And then we've had a really rainy season the last 4 months. So everything is just beautiful. There's monstera leaves growing out of the sides of buildings and massive palm trees. And because Mexico City's on a lake bed, it's got a lot of wet, rich soil, so things just grow aplenty here. But it's also, it's a cultural mecca. There's so much to see and experience here. So I've just been diving into all of it. And it's been good. It's been great. I love it here. I've had a little bit of a journey to settle in, but that's to be expected when you relocate somewhere new, of course, like in any international city or even any city in general. Like moving is a big fucking deal. Even in your 30s, it's like, yeah, I've done this before. I know what it's like to pick up and land somewhere and have to figure it out, but it still is such an adjustment. And each place has its own energy, has its own character, has its own challenges. So you just kind of have to find your way with it. It's like starting a new relationship. You're like, oh, there's the honeymoon stage and everything's glitzy, pretty, sparkly, cute, fun, stunning, exciting. And then once the honeymoon phase wears off, you have to kind of sit with yourself and ask yourself, what am I doing here? What am I trying to create? What am I trying to put forth? And I think that's where I've been in the last few months. So it's been a little bit of a confrontation of okay, what do I actually want to do here? I can consume easily, going outside every day, experiencing cafes and galleries and exhibits and live music and social experiences and wellness events. There's so much. And then at a certain point, I just kind of have had to sit with myself, literally take a good old seat next to Liv and have some deep chats to figure out what the hell we're doing. I turned 35 in July, and it was like a mixed bag of things. I had a great birthday, but it also came with just a little dose of depression, and it was still the rainy season. So just kind of trying to figure out how to stay joyful without any vitamin D, which is really hard for me. I need that sun, baby. But yeah, it came with a little depression, came with a little lost puppy energy. I've always been someone who is passionate and has a lot of enthusiasm for things. So when my depression kicks in, it's kind of like a little warning sign to be like, okay, have you lost the plot? What's the vision? What are you doing? And as much as that sadness can come with, it's hard to get out of bed and it's hard to find motivation to see people and it's hard to go enjoy the things that I used to enjoy. As much as it comes with that, it also comes with deep rest, and it comes with having to really look at things for what they are. Depression is like this fun little shadow play. Okay, less fun, more shadow. because it really is this opportunity to look at where you're not feeding yourself, where you're not being fed, where you're just like letting energy be taken from you and not actually being, getting energy to be poured into yourself. It's an opportunity to like literally sit and lay and yes, crawl under the covers some days, because you have to stop the stimulation from coming in order to get really clear on things. And this city is like, there's so much stimulation. I mean, just walking down the street to get, to go to the market, hopping on my bike and getting through traffic, going out to some event and like meeting new people and like speaking Spanish and having to, find my way in like this culture and navigate my way through new situations. That's all so stimulating. And so it's actually really important for me to take like deep rest time to get clear. But yeah, I turned 35. I got kind of sad and the rain didn't help. And then I relocated to this amazing studio. Um, Literally, I'm treating it as a studio, like a podcast studio, but it's also my home studio that I live in. I have my bedroom right over here, separated by this beautiful little art wall. I've got this amazing kitchen. Everything was custom designed by this local designer who is the boyfriend of my good friend Margarita, who decorated the space for me, did all the shopping to make it like to just customize it, make it very me, bringing in her own art, her own plants, her own lit books, and just really making it a space that I could feel like a home. And it's been that. It's felt so good. When I walked in here, because I saw it when it was gutted. It was just a gutted old building that they've spent years renovating. But when I saw it, it was just like the renovated space, but no furniture. I don't even know if the plumbing was done. Yeah, the kitchen was completely unfinished. There was like a tile wall, a tile floor, wood floor, and that's it. And I was like, I don't know what this is going to be, but I need to be here. So I said yes without knowing what the finished product was going to be. And it ended up better than I could have expected. And it's been a really good place to land because I'm a Cancerian queen. You know, I'm a householding girl. I need to feel like I can come home to a sanctuary. I feel like I need a home space where I can do my work from, where I can dance in, where I can, read in and meditate in and get ready in and just like move in my own energy. That's so important to me. So to have a space that feels like it replicates my energy and my kind of gives me some inspiration too with like just the design and the thoughtfulness of everything. That's my kind of space. And I've lived in so many different places over the years, from Costa Rica to Colombia to Peru to, I mean, even back in the States, living in Malibu and Durango and, all these different places. I've had like very unique home spaces always. Some of them have been spectacular and special, and some of them have been like immediately no. No, immediately no. But this was a hell yes. And so I moved in, I'm getting settled. It's been a couple months. And I'm like, this is the best place to film something. Like, what am I going to film? And, this podcast really came from my 35th year, kind of showing me all the things that I've done and all the things that I'm proud of and all the decisions I've made up until now. And mostly pretty good. Mostly pretty good. Life is good. Lots of stories to tell. That's what we're doing with this podcast, baby. So don't worry. There's so many stories to tell, which is the reason I'm starting this podcast. So let's segue into that. I am a professional writer. I create story and I produce articles and I help do branding and identity development for businesses. And I work in marketing and I am all about, bringing the story to life, whether it's for a product or a real estate project or a service or whatever, like name it. And I've done some version of it. I've worked across many industries and I love to create a narrative around a thing, So instead of just like promoting a design studio, I'm like, okay, well, what's the intentionality behind the designers and what's the messaging here? And, what do we leave with each customer and client? And, what's the overall impact? And just going deeper with those kinds of things. I love that. It's been great. I've worked in many different facets of storytelling. I started off in editorial journalism, working for a publication in LA, quit my job because I couldn't work in an office and I couldn't work for corporate vibes. That just, I didn't know what exactly I was looking for, but I knew that that was not my look, Connie baby. Not my look. So I abandoned that and started freelance journalism. And I did that for years while I traveled around South America and continued to do that when I relocated to Costa Rica, or got stuck in paradise, as I like to call it, during the pandemia. And then I started doing more business communications and I started telling other people's stories for them. And I loved that. I would do deep dive conversations with people to understand the intention of their project or their brand, and then find, curated, interesting language to bring it to life. Now, that's cool that I turned my passion for writing into a business and into a career. But there has always been this underlying feeling of abandoning my own story. And I feel like this is like part of the reason that I wanted to open up this conversation in this type of format, in a video format, in an intimate space where I can look at you and we can look at each other and, so to speak, and have like open chats about this, because I am not the only one who's done this. Dare I say, I am not the only one who has abandoned my story or abandoned my voice or abandoned my true expression. I think so many people have, not so many, everyone has a fucking story to tell, okay? Everyone. And I know that because I have a story to tell. And I'm just a girl grew up on the East Coast, lived in Colorado, went to college, moved around, traveled, explored, you know, built a life. Like, I'm just like anybody else. And I have a story. So if I have a story, so does everyone else. You know what I'm saying? And so part of the creation of this is to kind of just remind us of that, remind myself that first, but then also like talk about it. Like, what is that journey of what does it mean to abandon your voice and not give yourself space to be heard? What does it mean to not fully express yourself? And what does it feel like when you don't do that? It really comes down to that. And so around my birthday, July 22nd, I was feeling this like pressure cooker energy of like the walls are kind of closing in, like the heat's getting turned up, and I'm either going to like rise to the top with my like authentic truth, or I'm just going to like suffocate myself by continuously not doing what I feel like I should be doing. So dramatic, right? But that's truly welcome. Welcome to Adlib with Liv. We love the drama. So at this time, I just realized, okay, if I don't get my story out, if I don't express myself in some capacity that feels bigger and bolder than what I've done before, then what's the point of being here? Like, what's the point of doing any of this? I could have the most beautiful, lovely life that looks great. It's aesthetically so cute, so appealing, exactly how I envisioned it. Have the clothes I want, have the hair I want, have the kind of joie de vivre that I want, like show up in places and feel so good about myself. I could have an amazing partner who just is there to do everything I ask them to. No, it just has have a devotional partner. Let's call it that. Have a divine circle of female friends who I can travel around the world to visit at any time and come see me, and we plan wonderful experiences. I could have all of that. But if I don't have a place, an avenue for self expression, and a place to continuously explore that self expression and create a life where it's about the thing that I'm putting out in the world, then none of the other things I just listed are worth it to me. I would trade all of those things in to have a deep, intimate connection with my creativity and my expression and my voice. And it's funny because that's something I've known forever. I remember living in California and just feeling this, like my life was so good. I had this really sick house that was in the Santa Monica Mountains that overlooked the Pacific Ocean, so I could watch the sunrise and the sunset in front of my house with deer walking by, whales in the distance. It was a little kind of dovecot, my grandma used to call it, a dovecot, and it had no kitchen, and it was just this little space that I made into my home. It was a guest house on a property. And the people were barely ever there. It was like friends of a friend, and it was truly magical. And I remember just like I would wake up on the weekends and I would, go on a hike, and then I would go to the farmer's market, and then I would lay on this old like vintage red sofa with the doors open to the sea, and I would read so much. That was a time where I was reading like a book every couple weeks. I was just in my like literature era. And I remember laying on the couch one day and being like, I just imagined all the things that I wanted for myself. And I imagined a family and children running around and this beautiful property and, just like, feeling so good and content. And then I remember thinking, is that what I want? Because I was visioning something very traditional. And I just remember questioning that and being like, there's a part of me where that's like the safest choice. And I want that. There's a part of me that still wants that 100%. But then I remember thinking, well, is that because it's comfortable and I can see it because it's been demonstrated before me? Or is there a different way to be that I like haven't explored and haven't touched on? And the answer was that there was a different way to be. There was something else for me. It doesn't mean that I'm not building to that, whatever you want to call it, traditional life. Sure, like I'll be a trad wife any day, but a trad wife with a with a creative career, that's for damn sure. Like, I'm sorry, but Nara Smith is not a trad wife. That bitch is creating content. She is a creative. She might be selling a trad wife lifestyle, but she's a creative running her household. If you know, you know. And so I just had this idea that, like, yeah, I need to be creating. I started writing a book. I think it was like, I don't know, my first or second year in Malibu. And I had my laptop with me and I had this ongoing document that was a Word doc. And it was my book that I was writing. And it was so cool. I had this like limitless confidence. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to write a book and it's going to be about my life and all my ideas and thoughts and reflections. And I was like, there was no imposter syndrome. There was nothing holding me back from like outlining this book. Like I literally had like 70 pages of Word content. And at some point, that just kind of fizzled out into the universe. And then something started happening where I just started to shelf my dreams of being a full-time creative. Not that I even wanted to be a full-time creative or a full-time writer. I wanted to just get my shit out. I just wanted to release some of this like ongoing script in my head, these ideas that I have, these like descriptions, the way I see the world as a writer, it's as an artist in general, it's really about sharing your perspective on the world with others in any format. That's it. That's what being an artist is. And so I had this idea that I would at least, create something on the sidelines of my life, while I had a career and made money and did all the things. But I just started to lose that trust in myself. I started to doubt. I started to get that imposter syndrome where you're like, who do I think I am? Who wants to hear from me? And it just happened. And then it continuously happened. And I all of a sudden started building my life around this goal of being international. And to be honest, that was always the goal. When I was in third grade, I was taking a Spanish class in third grade. No mames. It was probably at least sixth grade. Yeah, it was like probably sixth grade. And I was taking a Spanish class and I didn't learn a thing. Okay. Didn't learn a goddamn thing in that Spanish class. In fact, that class was hell for me. But two things I had going for me was that my teacher said I had a really good accent. She was like, you don't know any grammar, but your accent's like very convincing. And I was like, that's because I've secretly always been like a little bit of like a theater geek without ever really doing very much theater because I have stage fright. But I always like have had different, personalities and different kind of, I have accents, honey. So anyways, she gave me that compliment and I was like, yeah, I know, it's pretty good. I could probably fake my way to like getting into Spain. They might even think I'm Spanish. Uh, and then the other thing I had going for me was that I did a book report on Chile. We got to choose any country. I chose Chile. You can ski and surf in the same day. It's like this skinny country that's just kind of sliced down there in South America. It's very far away, but it also felt close. Like I felt a kind of connection to this place. And I've always felt that way about Latin America. I've always felt this like just unspoken kind of connection to this place because in school, we did not really study Latin America as a place that was so close to us. And of course, like revisionist history, I didn't know that the Americas were all very much connected, and we did not have these borders, and we didn't have this kind of separation that then I would be taught in school that there are borders and there is separation. But my instinct, my inner knowing, that inner knowing, she, even as a young girl, I was like, these are just borders. These are just like lines in the sand, which we can step right over. And so I always felt really called to exploring that separation and seeing maybe that there isn't so much separation, which is so many stories about that for another day. Tune in, stay tuned in. I'm going to tell you some things. So yeah, I had this connection to Latin America. Chile was like always on the list. So I was like, I have to get out of America. Like that's the goal. I decided I'm going to give up this amazing apartment and I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to move back to Boulder for like a month or two and figure out this freelance career thing and see if I can take this show on the road. And that's, long story short, that's what I did. And within like 4 or 5 months, I was moving to Medellin, Colombia. Actually, I went to Costa Rica first, did a yoga teacher training, and then moved to Colombia. But basically, the point of this is to tell you that I shelved my creativity and instead focused on getting abroad. That was the goal. That was the new vision for my life, was not a creative outlet or, trying to find a way to just like tell my stories and be, the person that I kind of always saw for myself, which was, a storyteller and a speaker and, maybe a book writer and an author and an interviewer. And that was my modality was always communications. And I kind of knew that would always show up in my life, but I didn't really pour into it in the way that I think now looking back, I really wish I had, but here we are. So I had this new life in another country. And then, so I explored Latin America for 8 months, which again, so many stories there, so many stories about solo traveling. Like I'm talking solo, like didn't speak the language, didn't travel with a group, didn't talk to Americans or Europeans. I was like super set on like just having like a Latin connection. I was like, everybody else can fuck off. I'm here to like talk to Latinos and really get like their experience and all of that. So I was just like on this kind of, I was also grieving the loss of my grandmother, which was a huge driver for the way that trip went. That was like, oof, I was deep in it. And I didn't really share that with a lot of people, but I was literally trying to survive through my grief in another country. And it was definitely one of the hardest things I've ever done and one of the most liberating things I've ever done. So I have so many stories I want to talk to you about because there is something about discovering yourself and processing your emotional states while you're also like in a place where you don't even know like how to get to the next town over, or you don't know how to ask for this thing, or your phone dies, or your bank account, your ATM card is cut off, and you're like literally stranded on San Andres Isla, this island off of Nicaragua, part of Colombia, staying with this guy who like was in love with you 2 days ago and now he's like trying to pawn you off to his friends because he actually has a girlfriend in another country, and you're like writing about it on a blog on your website, like talking about this like emotional heartbreak after knowing this local Colombian guy for like 2 days. Yes, those are some of the stories. And I wouldn't take any of it back. So that leads me to this narrative that I was going off of, which is getting abroad and being international. And my aunt Jode was like a huge inspiration for me growing up. She's going to be on the podcast at some point. I will tell you that right now. She is a woman, she needs her own podcast. I'm telling you right now. She is like no one you've ever met. And she will be sitting next to me one of these days, one of these months, one of these years to have a good old chat because she inspired a lot of my my desire to be international, and showed me a pathway that like it was possible to be a woman out in the world living an international life on your own terms. So anyways, I achieved this goal of being abroad. And once I achieved this goal, it was kind of like this constant survival mode of just like keeping up with my lifestyle. And that's because staying staying sane in Costa Rica, because I ended up in Costa Rica for 4 years because of the pandemic, staying sane there was like a weekly goal, because that place is very intense. And again, so many stories, so many, so many people will know what I'm talking about without even having to say it, because that place is a portal, and it can also be like a, a Death Star. Like it's very intense. Things go to die and be reborn there, and that's an intense thing to be on in an extended initiation. An extended initiation for years is like, it's heavy, and it also comes with a lot of levity, but that place was intense. I basically was just like trying to figure out how I could get out of Costa Rica. I was like, okay, I love this place and I'm living my paradise life of sipping coconuts and learning how to surf and making amazing fresh fish dinners with friends and going out dancing to reggaeton and, just having this like really rich, sensual, very sensual life that is so me. I'm sensual. I want everything to be rich and delicious and sensual and just feel damn good. And that place felt really damn good when it wasn't like showing you some intense lesson. So I was kind of like fighting for my life a little bit there. Like I had some really good years, and then I had some years where I was like, I gotta get out. I gotta get out. How do I get out? And eventually I took a trip to Oaxaca with some girlfriends, fell in love with Oaxaca. I was like, whatever happens, I'm going to be here at some point. And then I finally made my way out of Costa Rica. And that's something I want to share about, is the publication that I produced, because that was a really big opening for my creative self, and definitely has contributed to me stepping into this more like authentic kind of storytelling avenue that I'm taking. Again, podcast for another day. So I make it to Mexico. I lived in Oaxaca last year for 7 months. I had a very, very magical time, but it was also very tranquilo. It's a little aburrido, a little boring, a little chill, and great, because I needed like a stepping stone. My whole plan was to go from Costa Rica to a small city that I could like acclimate to. Okay, what's Mexico? What's the culture? What are the people? What are we doing? Do I even like it here? Does anyone like me? The usual internal dialogue when you move to a new place. And then I was like, okay, I think Mexico City is my next jump, and I'm just going to send it to the fifth largest city in the world, where there is just traffic and chaos and this like kind of rushed, intense, busy energy, and like so many different types of people, and like how am I going to fit in, and how am I going to navigate this? And to be honest, it's been very chill. And Mexico City offers this beautiful, beautiful energy. If you're okay, this is like obviously coming from a very privileged perspective, but if you live in these beautiful neighborhoods that are very safe, Roma Norte, Roma Sur, Condesa, even like Navarte. Yeah, there's like some really beautiful, chill neighborhoods, very residential, but also like millions of cafes and yoga studios and all the things. And they're fabulous. I loved living over there. I'm now in a different area. But I realized like, okay, I could do this. The city is like actually welcoming me in, and it's also so chill. I don't feel overwhelmed. I feel overwhelmed by all the things there are to do, because there's so much to do and there's not enough time in this world to do it all. So once you get over that like FOMO is like a daily experience, you just kind of let it go and you're like, I'm going to do what I feel like doing, and then the rest will figure itself out. But yeah, Mexico's been fantastic. But then this thing happened. I moved into this really great space, and I was like, okay, I'm living like in this beautiful space. I'm living internationally. I am building a life that I love. But I felt this gap. I felt this like, this Grand Canyon of vacancy in my life. And it's been a rough 4 months. I'm not going to lie. Ever since I turned 35 and even like a little bit before that, it's just been a lot of emotion. And then, okay, let's talk about the eclipse. Can we just blame it on the eclipse? The eclipse has been gnarls Barkley. I definitely want to blame it on the stars, but I also want to thank the stars, whether you're into astrology or not. Things have been heavy for a lot of people lately. Yeah, the world. Yes, yes, sir. That things have been so heavy. Pesado way. But also, there's been personal challenges for people. If I told you about the trip I just had with my sister and Raul, her husband, I mean, it's laughable. It's comedy and drama and it's so bad. It's so bad. They just came to visit me and it did not turn out the way we thought it was. And it was just like that eclipse energy. Everything is just like crashing down to make space for the new. Everything is dissolving. The ego, the attachments, the veil that we put over things is dissolving. And I've just been in the thick of it. Like I've had these kind of egoic experiences where I'm like, who am I? And trying to like empty myself of all the things that I think I am and all the things that I am attached to and that I think associate myself with these things, and just emptying myself. It's really been like an ego purge, which has been 10 out of 10 recommend, because I think there's just a lot of space for us to reinvent the stories in our head, and also to just kind of get outside of like how self-obsessed we are. We're in a society of a lot of self-obsession, and I just kind of am like sick of it. I'm like sick of myself. But the purpose of me saying this is that I had this moment where I've had many moments, actually, many breakdowns on this couch right there on the bed, with mushrooms as my guide. Another story. Mushrooms are a theme right now for me in my life. But yeah, I really have felt a strong sense of looking at things for what they are. And what I've been seeing is that I have literally taken my creativity and my expression and my like all forms of expression, my desire to move and dance, my desire to like sing and songwrite, my passion for storytelling out loud, my desire to be more like comedic in my writing and to just like embrace my like sarcasm and sense of humor, and just and like really say how I feel also, like that's all tied up in this like energy of expression. And I've just done this. I've found this great apartment, this beautiful space, and I've just taken all this expression and I've just put it right here on the shelf. And it's just sitting there, like just almost as like decor instead of this like integrated thing into my life. And when I realized that there was quite literally nothing else to do except for build out this space for me to express myself, I kind of just said, fuck it. I said, look, I don't really care about much else. I know that I haven't been addressing this thing that is so deeply important to me. And it's kind of like my only responsibility. Like when you're someone who has these like creative tendencies, it comes with this responsibility of like, if I feel this like internal prana, this like life force in me that needs to move out into the world in a certain way, and I don't do that, it's like, give me the Tums, give me the Pepto. Like we're constipated, we're not moving. Nothing can flow if that part of you is stagnant and stuck. And so I've just said, fuck it. So here we are. I'm starting a podcast. I have so many things I want to talk about. I have so many intentions for this podcast. The next episode, I'm going to talk about what Adlib means to me and how that's going to be kind of shared and expressed throughout this podcast. I'm going to share with you how this is going to be a story-centered podcast, not only for my own like cheeky, dramatic personal stories that I've had over the last 35 years, but also bringing other voices into the space. There are so many amazing creators that I don't think have the recognition or the sort of platforming that I think they should have. So I'm going to do like a story hour and spotlight some really amazing creatives and their story within their work, from fashion designers to architects to musicians, and really highlighting their kind of approach to their work and showing you guys how story is interwoven into everything. And for me, it's this balance of personal storytelling and also, pursuing my passion for interviewing and showcasing stories on different levels, from local creators here in Mexico City to back home to around the world, to people that are inspiring me this week, to media, film, music that's kind of just getting me going, and kind of recognizing where the story lives within all of that, and also within you. I would love to eventually, create space to connect with my listeners of the podcast. Hopefully, there's some listeners. Low key, it's going to be humbling if this just doesn't work out. So send the podcast to a friend if you feel like they'd be interested. No, but really, it's exciting, and this is like a huge kind of moment for me to allow myself to be heard and to recognize that if I can make space for myself to be heard, then there is space for you to also be heard wherever you're at in your life, your career, your relationship. If you're looking to move, relocate, start over, start fresh, um, do it. Hazlo. Do it. It is definitely where I think the truth lives. The truth lives in stepping out over the edge. I want to leave you with a quote that is one of my favorites from Georgia O'Keeffe, the painter extraordinaire. I always felt I walked on the edge of a knife. On this knife, I might fall off on either side, but I'd walk it again. So what? So what if you do fall off? I'd rather be doing something I really wanted to do. Simple, but poignant. It's like we overdo it sometimes. We're like, oh, I can't do that thing, or oh, I can't be that person, or I can't start that. It's like, actually, it's just the difference in you doing it and not doing it. Like, the world isn't going to light on fire if you don't do it, or even if you do it, just don't light the world on fire. I associate bravery with stepping fully into my creativity and into expression and into willing to be witnessed by other people, without shame, without a concern of how it's being perceived, how I'm being perceived. It's really about getting away from like the performance of it all, because to be honest, like with all this ego shadow work I've been doing, I'm like, there is so much performing that we do in our lives. And it is like, is it goes back to when we were kids. It's such a ingrained thing in us to put on and to perform and to people please and to pacify. And I've done that, and I'm honestly like I'm pretty good at it. I'm pretty fucking good at it. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, I can still be lovely and kind and all of that, but I don't have to do it at the expense of my own creativity and my own honesty. Like, my voice matters. What I have to say matters. And I say that to you while my voice shakes a little bit and while I get a little emotional, because there are so many times where I just been haven't been heard. And it's okay to feel that. It's okay to have those experiences. In fact, I feel like it makes me fucking relatable, because I have empathy and like a deep care for other people who haven't been heard, which is, kind of comes down to a lot of like the storytelling work that I do is about uplifting underrepresented voices and people who don't necessarily get the spotlight. And I'm like, no, you are in the spotlight, honey. You deserve to be heard, seen, celebrated, and just a part of the conversation. And that is this is for the next podcast. I am going to save some for the next one. Is that we have to honor that within ourselves before we create space for others. So that's truly what this is me making space for myself so I can create even more space for others. If I'm here to do anything, it's doing it for the plot, because without a plot, there is no story, and I'm here to tell stories. Thanks for tuning in to Adlib with Liv. We'll see you soon.